Hey everyone, we're back at it, and today we're diving into one of the biggest topics shaking up New York's real estate market right now, and Boston could be next. I'm talking about the new mayor, Zohran Mamdani, New York's first Democratic socialist ever elected. He has some bold new policies. One of them we're going to talk about today, which is rent freezes. Now, this is important to Boston because Mayor Wu of Boston has also expressed support. And I think Boston is going to be keeping an eye on how this pans out for New York City. So we're going to look at rent freezes, what they exactly are, where they've been done before, the pros and cons, and what we know to be true where they've been done. So let's dive in. Before we jump in, don't forget, I'd love if you gave me a like and subscribe so I can help get you some more great real estate content. So first off, we're going to talk about what exactly are rent freezes. So New York's been facing some major affordability crises. Rent prices have skyrocketed post-pandemic, inflation's still a little sticky, and wages haven't really kept up. And lawmakers argue that a rent freeze protects vulnerable tenants, especially senior and low-income families, from getting priced out of their neighborhoods. It's also important to know there's often political strategies behind this, as housing has become one of the biggest issues in these elections. And it's also important to know that over 75% of New Yorkers are renters, which is crazy, and I personally think is their biggest problem. So let's talk about topic one. What is a rent freeze? So a rent freeze typically means that the landlords aren't allowed to raise rent for a certain period. It's often like a 1 to 3 year period on rent stabilized units or controlled units. Now, this could be an entire city, a town, or even a smaller section, but the goal is to help tenants deal with rising rent and housing shortages. So now we know what it is, let's dive into the next topic, which I think is the most interesting. Where has it happened and what have the effects been? So as I dove in, this is something that's actually only been tested in a couple of areas, really New York and California, and they've been done in small areas. And one reason this is really controversial is as I dove deep into the research, I asked ChatGPT and looked into the evidence. There's really not enough data to support whether this is good, bad, or successful long-term. But let's look at the third topic that will help you figure out where you land on this, the pros and cons. So for property owners, a rent freeze can mean a squeeze in operating costs. Things like maintenance, property taxes, and insurance keep going up, but rent revenue is stuck. This can discourage small landlords from keeping up their buildings, keeping the units looking nice, and in some cases even leading to them to selling off properties, which can affect the real estate market. Sometimes they even sell these to large corporations or investment funds. In the short term, rent freeze might slow down rental growth, but in the long run, they can affect supply. Fewer new developments, tighter inventory, and ironically, even higher prices in the non-stabilized units. Developers typically think twice before building multi-unit buildings in a market where rent increases can be capped by law, which then takes away more housing in those areas. And when supply drops while demand stays high, it often just, as I said before, just drives up prices in other areas. On the flip side, for renters who are struggling to make ends meet, this can be a lifeline. This rent freeze, it can keep people housed and provide them with stability in an uncertain economic time. So what I did next is what any of us would have done. Ask ChatGPT what it thinks of rent freezes, have it look back, look at data, and just say, after collecting everything you can on the internet, all the data, what's your thought on rent freezes? And I'll give it to you right here. So ChatGPT said, in the short term, for targeted tenants, yes, a well-designed rent freeze or very low increase cap can relieve cost burdens and improve stability. But in the medium to long term, if the freeze is broad and prolonged without accompanying supply side interventions, the benefits may be offset by worse availability, lower housing quality, or risk of market distortion. The effectiveness heavily depends on design and context, scope, duration, how it treats new versus existing leases, what complementary policies exist. A freeze alone is unlikely to suffice. It must be paired with broader housing policy reform. So in my opinion, I think ChatGPT has it right. Could this work for 1 to 3 years? Sure. But if your problem is not having enough housing that's reasonably priced, that's a problem you have to come up with a better solution for. And government has to get more creative. If 75% of your residents rent, you have to incentivize renters to own and incentivize landlords to sell to their tenants. This can be done through tax incentives that the government does in plenty of other areas. So you could give tenants better interest rates, help them with down payment assistance. If you believe people in your city are going to thrive, you can back their mortgages the way the VA does. So I think the biggest problem is that government just isn't creative enough. I know it's difficult. I'm not in their shoes. They often just come up with blanket fixes to things. They need ways to stop wasting money in other areas, take money and support people who are trying to become owners. So that's really my takeaway. I just think there's the amount of money they're spending on all this. I think there's better ways to look at people who are doing a good job building up towards home ownership and propping those people up and helping more people get ownership. I think the biggest problem New York has is that over 75% number. Over 75% of who they are not real estate owners, and that's gonna be a big problem in that city. So I thought this little ChatGPT information was helpful in this breakdown. Hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget, give me a little like and subscribe. And I'd love to hear, what do you guys think? Little comments right here. Share, do you think this rent stabilization is going to work? Are you hoping to see it happen? Or do you hope that we see bigger and better solutions for the housing market? Let me know. Hope you have a great week. Stay informed, stay smart about real estate. See you on the next one.